everyone. Do you ever have that day where like you literally forget to put mascara on? Because that was me, and I've already filmed a lot of content today and I literally forgot to put mascara on. So I've been looking crazy all day, but I did remember for this video. Also, if you can hear Gizmo, he is my companion on the ground right now, and so he might be making some sound. He's chilling right here. Okay, so as you've seen from the title of this video, I have read a lot of romance books this summer, and so this is kind of my summer romance. So I actually read 10 romance books this summer, 12 if you include It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us. However, I'm not including them in this video because I'm not putting them in the solid romance category. Even though specifically in It Starts With Us, like that is like a lot of positive romance, but we're just not gonna go into that today because I just didn't feel like going into it today. Yeah, so we're gonna start from worst to best and I'm gonna give you all of my reasons. The only book I actually own physically is this one, so you're gonna be seeing a lot of pictures on the screen today, so I hope you don't mind. But starting with number 10 is When in Rome, which at the time I thought was pretty okay. But after my entire summer of reading a lot of romance books and upon a lot of further reflection, I just determined that this book didn't hit. It was kind of cringe. This book is about a famous singer who goes into this small town to kind of get away on a little vacation. She's very overwhelmed, but she ends up stopped in front of someone's house and has a full breakdown, and this guy kind of comes and he's like, "You good?" And she's like, "Not really," and so then she stays and she starts to really like this small town, of course, but of course she's like a celebrity, so going out and stuff is kind of hard. Our main character's name is Noah, I believe, but he has 3 sisters who have their own books, and we'll talk about those books later. As you can see, they got a better rating, not by much, but I think the celebrity element of it all really ruined it for me. And as you can tell, I'm having a hard time with the synopsis because this book left my brain almost as quickly as it came into my brain. Oh, also, I hope you all enjoy my romance reader t-shirt that I'm wearing today. So I kind of changed the angle of it because I hated it, and I kind of hate this angle too, but we're just gonna keep going. Number 9 is Hookline Sinker, which follows It Happened One Summer, which is a story about 2 sisters who go into the small town because small towns are super in, because their stepdad, he is super wealthy, so they have to abandon their rich girl lifestyle and they have to go live in their deceased father's old apartment. He was a very well-known fisherman, so everyone is very happy to see these girls back. Our main character in It Happened One Summer does not get along with one of the captains of these fishing boats at all. The girls end up working really hard to open their own bar and kind of make some money until they're allowed to come back home and live in their mansion and buy their clothes and post on Instagram and stuff. Is essentially the gist of that. And they slowly start to realize that they kind of like it there, but they also kind of maybe like the people there. Now, the book that I ranked 9 is Hookline Sinker, which is about Hannah, which is the other sister, and she decided to go into the movie business, and she kind of missed her sister who decided to stay behind in the first book. So when she's working on one of these sets, she pitches the idea that the perfect filming location for their movie is that town. Now, selfishly, she wants to go visit her sister, but there's also someone from the first book who she would also like to visit. She's obsessed with music and really bonds with this one guy over that, and he is a crew on the captain's fishing boat, but this captain really wants to make him a captain of a second boat that he has. So that's his kind of storyline, and so her and him get to reconnect a little bit, and she actually has to go stay in his apartment because her sister has another roommate, if you know what I mean. For me, this book kind of just felt boring and it fell a little flat for me, and I just didn't have like a super fun time. I wasn't super excited to pick it up. I felt like I was just getting it done just because I was going to, and I really didn't even particularly like It Happened One Summer, but I wanted to just finish the series and make it complete because it was about both of them, and I just love like the completeness, right? So I read the ChiChi, I feel like I have to read the rule book, and I just need to know what's happening in that world. Now, number 8 is It Happened One Summer, so it didn't get ranked that much higher. For me, this book was slightly better. Romance between these two characters I did like a little better. It does follow more traditional tropes and like trajectories of small town romance and not getting along. So it's pretty vanilla in terms of the plot. Number 7 is Practice Makes Perfect, which is the follow-up book to When in Rome, because it's about one of Noah's sisters. Now, she is a florist, she loves flowers, and she's known as this like goody two-shoes, perfect angel girl. She doesn't swear or anything, she barely drinks, and all her sisters are teachers, and she's living the wholesome life. But she hates that everyone has put her into that box of being like the sweetest, most wholesome girl ever. And this book is kind of about her trying to become her own person. For me, what I didn't like is that the type of person people thought she was being portrayed as a very negative thing in her mind. She didn't want to be that person because she hated that person, but it just made that character type seem like such a negative thing. So she ends up in a romance with a bodyguard who is just back in town, and he's a very well-known bodyguard for being literally attractive. Like, that's what he's well known for. And he's pretty much famous for just being attractive. So of course, with his like insane muscles and tattoos, he charms this sweet good girl, and he actually teaches her how to be herself and also how to date. There's a little bit of fake dating, but not in the traditional sense of the trope. Number 6 is Hello Stranger, which is one I'm gonna have a really hard time with the synopsis, so bear with me. As you can tell, all these books are not super strong in my memory. So, Hello Stranger is super interesting because it's about face blindness. Our main character, who is, of course, she paints faces, that's her whole thing. I actually don't remember what happens to her, but she ends up with face blindness, and the doctors have told her it's slowly going to come back in time, but she's freaking out because she has a deadline to paint a portrait. So that's going on. Her dog ends up needing to go to the vet a lot, and so she ends up really having a crush on her vet. But also there's this guy in her building who's being so like crazy but also so nice, who she also kind of likes. So if you can kind of tell where the plot's going with that, then you might be frustrated with this book, kind of like I was. I was just a little frustrated because sometimes I hate when the reader knows something that the character doesn't, and she spends 80% of the book not knowing that thing that you are pretty sure that you know. That was kind of why I gave it a 6 on this list, but it was more interesting. I felt like I had more depth than some of these other romance books, and it had more character to it. I felt like our male interest was also super sweet. Face blindness really added some really interesting parts to this story, and it's also a little bit educational. So I would recommend it, but it's just not going to be my favorite. It's not going to be something I'm going to be recommending to people all the time. Number 5 is the ChiChi, which is about Nora and Nathan, I think is his name, and they were in high school running buddies, and that's how they met, and that was their thing. Okay, the ChiChi, I'm really struggling with these synopsis. I'm really struggling. Okay, so I got this. Okay, wow. So Nora and Nathan. Nathan is super good at football and Nora is super good at ballet. In high school, they got to know each other by being running buddies super early in the morning, but Nora gets into an accident that really prevents her from being a ballerina professionally, and so she ends up kind of going ghost mode a little bit. She gets really depressed, and later on in life, she ends up opening up her own ballet studio, and it's very low cost. She wants everyone to have easy accessibility to ballet, and she becomes a ballet instructor at the studio that really makes not a lot of money, and she's barely able to pay her rent. But luckily, she reconnected with Nathan, who is a professional football player, and he plays for this team called the Sharks, and they both have been dating other people, Nathan's always got a girl over, and one thing that they've kept in touch with is their running. And so they have become best friends over running, and that causes a lot of conflict for Nathan's love life. Oftentimes his girlfriends do not enjoy that, but Nathan has always put Nora first in their friendship. However, something ends up occurring that provides the perfect opportunity for them to be sponsored by Tide and do some commercials, which requires them to be fake dating and in a relationship for the press. Now, this is a great opportunity because Nora needs a lot of money, and I don't actually know what Nathan gets out of this, but Nora needs money. So she's like, okay, cool, we're gonna fake date. And so that's where the story kind of goes. For this book, I thought it was good, and I thought it was fun and sweet, and I really liked listening to it. It's perfectly in the middle of this tier for that reason. I believe I gave it 4 stars. I would recommend this, and I would recommend its companion book, The Rulebook, because it's just fun characters and it's just silly, good time. All right, number 4 is Mile High. This is about a professional hockey player and his whole team. They've got to make a lot of flights during the year. This is dual POV with the flight attendant that they get for the whole season, and her and him start off with a lot of banter. So it starts with him really trying to annoy her the whole season and really get under her skin. She is keeping a secret, which is that her brother is a professional basketball player, I think. So she kind of lives in the same apartment complex as him. And so they have a lot of interactions there and on the plane. And this book was a lot spicier than any of these other books, probably my spiciest on here. Yeah, this book was good. I enjoyed it. It did feel to me super long. It was a 17-hour audiobook, which I felt like was a little unnecessary for what it was. So that's why it's not in my top 3, but it's definitely a memorable story. And all the parts I can remember of it, I feel like would be spoilers. So I'm not going to go into it too much, but flight attendant and hockey player. Number 3 is The Rulebook, which follows the ChiChi. This one I recently read in a trying to finish my library books reading vlog. The premise of this book is these are 2 exes. She goes on to become a sports agent, and her first client happens to be her ex, but she's really stressed out about this and wants to do a good job. And he went on to become a professional sports player. He's her client, and he doesn't really want to be her client, so he tries to make it really difficult. She asks a lot of stupid things for him. He like asks her to like cook and stuff for him. Like he tries to be super annoying, kind of like in Mile High. And something ends up happening in the middle of the book that causes them to have to be fake dating for the sake of both of their careers. And that's where things kind of get interesting. I was actually shocked by what happened in the middle of the book, about at the 40% mark, but I really liked both these characters and I thought it was a really fun read, and it reminded me of Jerry Maguire in terms of the atmosphere. This definitely felt like it had much less to do with the sharks than the ChiChi did. And this one is dual POV, just like the ChiChi, and we really get to see, you know, what they both think of each other and how they both love each other, and you know, they just can't get over that whole. Number 2 is The Bodyguard. The Bodyguard is about this guy who is a really famous actor, and he ends up needing security because he's recently been getting a lot of death threats. So against his will, he has a security team put on for him. And one of his bodyguards ends up being our main character. I feel like you can hear Gizmo snoring. But she ends up having to be in a fake dating scenario again so that she can be protecting him. Super close quarters, and they end up doing a lot of stuff together because of that. She has to meet the family, and literally the family members think that they're together. And she's really trying to protect him. They have this one guy who keeps harassing him, and that kind of comes into play at the end of the book, which I found to be really wild, and I wasn't expecting that at all, but super interesting. She is a really interesting main character because her only dream is that after this, she'll be able to go travel the world and kind of just get away. One thing that makes this more intense is that her colleague on this whole assignment is her ex, who she literally just got dumped by. but she needs to keep it professional so that she can advance in her career and just get out of here and go to an assignment. I think whichever one of them does better on the assignment gets to go on the next location, which why do I feel like it's Korea? Low-key. I feel like it might be. But it's somewhere that they both want to go, and so they're kind of competing to be like the best person on the team. So this was a really fun book as well, and the romance was really cute. It was kind of a role reversal than what I expected when I picked up the book called The Bodyguard, which I really like. And number one, which I'm low-key so embarrassed by, is Icebreaker. And this book is about our hockey player. Why is his name also Nate? Yeah, it's Nate. And Anastasia. And she is a figure skater and he's a hockey player at this college. But do not expect them to be going to a single college class, because they don't. They do two things. They party and they go to practice and games or competitions. That's literally all they do until after about 20% in the book. And then the third thing they do is just there's lots of smut all the time. Like all the time. Which honestly, this is really tight with Mile High for how much they sleep together. But this book was really just a good time and it was really fun. The plot is that there's two rinks at this college and one of them gets destroyed, so both the hockey players and figure skaters have to be practicing in the same rink. So there's a lot of crossover with their interactions, but also they go to the same parties a lot. And they end up just being in kind of a low-key like friends with benefits situation for a bit. And the relationship is kind of confusing because Anastasia just came out of her own friends with benefits situation with this dude named Brian. So yeah, it's very friends with benefits-y. But Nate is also super rich, so that's kind of exciting. The epilogue, I will say, for this book was actually ridiculous. Like, make sure you have no realistic expectations because you will not find any of them at the end of this book. Specifically, it's just not aligned with who they are as actual characters and people, and I really wish I could tell you, but that just wouldn't be fun for you, would it? And I would recommend this book to people. Just understand that the cover is very misleading and you're definitely getting a lot more spice than you would expect. And also, although the setting is a college campus, there's nothing college-y about this book. It's literally as if they're just living in apartments, like having house parties all the time. I gave this book 5 stars, which it was just so good and I just can't even lie about that. So those are my top 10 books ranked from worst to best, and hopefully maybe you got a recommendation in my top 5, but maybe you didn't, and that's fine. But thank you so much for hanging out with me, and hopefully I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!